Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to ENTERPRISE.expert, a community of experts in enterprise level technology. Uh, Today's episode is April 20th, 2016. This will be a monthly webinar that will complement our ENTERPRISE.expert website. I will get into high level of detail about what we're all about and we want to achieve here. So, who is Enterprise Expert? I would like to say that Enterprise Expert is a community of experts in enterprise level technology. I encourage you to join the community by going into the website. The website is enterprise.expert. It's still under construction, so I apologize for that. But there is a blog. You can put comments, and then there's a couple of contents that we posted up there, mostly around QuickBooks Enterprise. Again, the website is enterprise.expert. No need to put www. Now, no need to put .com. It's one of those fun new web domains. So it's enterprise.expert. Also, search us in Facebook. Join the Facebook group. We already have over 100 members in the Facebook group, and we're asking each other questions and providing answers, mostly around QuickBooks Enterprise. But you'll see when we talk about Enterprise Expert, we're going to be a little bit more than that. Now, we also have this webinar series that you're joining us for if you're watching it live and not watching the recording, which you don't have to do anything about. If you are registered for one and you like it, you will be automatically registered for all the monthly webinars, and follow us on Twitter. That's a brand new Twitter account I created last night, literally, which is ENTERPRISE.expert. There wasn't enough characters to do the whole word expert, so that's our Twitter handle. Now, what does Enterprise Expert stand for? What does it mean? So, I would like to talk about some of the terminology that I use here in order to frame what we're trying to achieve with Enterprise.expert. First of all, by enterprise, I'm specifically referring to the medium-sized businesses or the established small businesses with a really proven business concept. And these businesses rely heavily on technology to conduct operations, right? By technology, I'm specifically talking about hardware, software, maybe cloud-based solutions. Most specifically in the business applications like accounting software, ERP, enterprise resource planning, CRM, databases, barcode scanners, RFID servers, laptops, mobile devices. As a matter of fact, we're very ambitious on what we want to cover here, and we'll talk about, when we're going to cover all those extra things. And by expert, I'm really just talking about any community member that is willing to share their experiences, knowledge, learnings, whether it's something that you know how to do well or made a mistake on, in any of our channels, whether it's our website, our Facebook group, maybe by emailing me or by sharing it through our blog, whatever it is. I would like the community of experts, of people that are out there using technology every day in enterprise, giving each other feedback and helping each other on how to implement these technologies that do get a little bit complex over time. Now, about the webinar series itself, the webinar series that you're on, it's going to be monthly. It's going to be every third Wednesday of every month. You register once and you will be invited to all of them. So you're attending today. You don't have to worry about registering again or anything like that. We may have special episodes with sponsored content or collaborated content, but in terms of our main episode that's featured today, this will be our main, really only guaranteed webinar that we'll have in a monthly basis. This is not a CPE providing webinar or an ACE, this is for Advanced Pro Advisors webinar. At least yet, I'm trying to really get the business case whether or not we are going to do a CPE type of webinar. The reason for that is because we're not going to focus 100% in accounting. We are going to be more on the technology area than the accounting area. And the reason why I'm talking about accounting is because most people that signed up today, they signed up because they know me or they connected with me or somebody from QuickBooks or a colleague of mine that is probably an accountant. And I'm pretty sure the majority of people joining us today are in the accounting industry one way, shape, or form. So our strongest focus is going to be in core enterprise level technologies such as accounting and ERP software. We are going to feature QuickBooks Enterprise for several episodes. possibly throughout the entire 2016 year, we'll be talking about QuickBooks Enterprise and QuickBooks Enterprise related apps, software, hardware that integrate, right? And down the road, once we completely talked about QuickBooks, which is it's really my personal area of expertise, and I get more of these community experts to join me in coalition and to build more content, we may even talk about even competitors of QuickBooks in this space, or software like SAP, Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics that really are for much larger companies. So we really are going to be QuickBooks centric, but we're not going to be 100% about QuickBooks because in this mid-sized market, QuickBooks is sort of the entry level, and a lot of times companies, once they go over 50 million, $100 million in sales, they need much more complex technology, and that's the stuff that we want to eventually talk about. And we also are going to have some coverage on what I call enterprise level technology that is not necessarily tied to accounting or ERP. Things like customer relationship management apps, like CRM apps, are things that we would want to explore. Things like email applications and in chat, internal chat and communication applications are things that will also be fair game in the future. Now, about myself, I am a CPA and a certified information technology professional. I'm the CEO of Active CPA, which is a rebrand of my accounting firm, which is moving more and more into the accounting and integrated technology consulting space. I'm an advanced certified QuickBooks Pro advisor and a premier reseller. If you want to contact me about the services that I do, just contact me at Hector at activecpa.com. Anyway, other recommended events, just to kind of make some uh, lines around what else is out there and things that I may be involved with. There is another webinar series called QB Power Hour. Some of you may already attend that one, which is every other week. I do it with my partner in QB Power Hour. Her name is Michelle Long. And this is where we focus more on the small business and the mainstream QuickBooks user, not so much the enterprise level QuickBooks user. That is typically every other Thursday. The next episode is actually tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern, same thing as this one. And also there's going to be a major event for QuickBooks Pro advisors. So if most of you are here because of QuickBooks Enterprise as the feature of the webinar for the first couple of episodes, this is a great conference for you to go to. I am personally going to teach every single day at that conference, different topics, but this specific topic that we'll talk about today, which is QuickBooks Enterprise Advanced Reporting, I will teach for 2 sessions on Wednesday. So recommend you to go to Scaling New Heights if you're still interested. I don't know if they have seats available, but it would be interesting for you to check that out as well. Now, about the episodes that are upcoming, we already have 4 episodes upcoming that are guaranteed to talk about QuickBooks Enterprise. We will talk about advanced reporting today, next month, and June. So it'll be 3 months back to back of Enterprise Advanced Reporting. Today, we'll talk about customizing starter reports. So we'll focus on the reports that are already available and how to make changes to those. And then next month, we will do creating reports from scratch. And the month afterwards, we'll talk about some use cases. I have people already emailing me and sending me requests via the Facebook group about the specific special use cases of reports that they need. And I'm actually building these reports for these people and creating these reports for them for the purposes of us talking about it in June. Now, if you go to Scaling New Heights, which is going to be between that second and third episode on advanced reporting, is going to be great for you because this third episode of advanced reporting will also be kind of a follow-up to the live class that I will do at Scaling New Heights. And finally, the one in July, we're going to be talking about advanced inventory and advanced reporting, and possibly towards August or September, whenever 2017 comes out, we'll probably dedicate an entire episode to the new features of QuickBooks Enterprise 2017, but we still don't know 100% sure when those will come out. All right, so we already did the polling question. Thank you very much for answering that. Let's dive right into the content. So limitations of QuickBooks Enterprise. Now, this is in comparison to the capabilities that are in QBar. I want to, and QBar is the term that we use for advanced reporting. So what are the issues that we have right now with using regular reports in QuickBooks Enterprise? So the problem is that custom reports are limited to 2 types, either a detailed report or a summary report. Now, the detailed report is great, gives you a lot of information. The problem is we have access to maybe 80% of the fields that are available, and they're not broken down in every possible way that we can create filters and stuff like that. So unlocking that extra 20% or whatever that percentage is, that's just an estimate. It's actually something that QBar does that you can't do in regular QuickBooks Enterprise. And also, very important, right? You cannot combine certain components of a summary report with a detailed report, or I cannot combine attributes from the list table, and we'll get into that, into a detailed report. So it makes it a little bit difficult for us to create filters and summaries and totals. And the other problem with a transaction detail report is that you can only group by one dimension. So let me, before I jump into more slides, let me get into QuickBooks Enterprise here real quick, and then just kind of tell you exactly what I'm talking about. So as far as doing custom reports in QuickBooks Enterprise, we're given basically two choices. Technically we're given four choices, but in terms of the concept of custom reports, we're given the concept of a summary report. So the challenge that we have with summary report, or the limitation, is that we have a single column dimension and we have a single row dimension. So that's challenge number one with a summary report. Challenge number two is the specific fields available as columns or rows are also highly limited. There's between 10 and 15 different options there, and we don't have the entire data set unlocked for us to create columns or rows for a summary report. Now, in contrast, when we talk about a detailed report, some of the deficiencies that I was alluding to, let me go ahead and hit OK here, is that these fields here, which are the columns, in this case, in the custom transaction detail report world, the columns are fields. These fields are only about 80% of the data that is in the transaction itself. And even though I can click on Customize Report here and enable some of the additional fields that I would like to see, I don't have access to every single field, and this is where advanced reporting really comes into play. Allows me to, it gives me almost every field that is available. The other piece here is this totaling option. This totaling option, it's limited to the options that are here. One, and two, it's only a single dimension. So I can only really create subtotals by a particular dimension, like customer, vendor, something like that. So again, that's another big limitation of the reports in a QuickBooks Enterprise before advanced reporting. Now, the other really major deficiency or shortcoming is that there's no way to create a calculated field. We cannot take two pieces of information from two fields and calculate it, multiply it times something. This is a typical case for commission reports. It's probably the number one most requested type of report that I get. Is I need a report that tells me sales by rep, and then it also multiplies that times a particular commission rate, so I can figure out how much commission to pay my salespeople. That's a very common report that we get asked for in the QuickBooks Enterprise world. There's just no possible way to build that unless we export to Excel and do manual calculation. So that's something that we could essentially do in QuickBooks Advanced Reporting, is we could do a calculated field. Now, today we will not talk about a commission report. I'm going to wait until the third session, which is the one in June, to do this, because I'm actually going to take multiple requests for commission reports, and I want to see different ways that people are asking for commissions and tiered commissions and things like that. So it should be very exciting a couple of months from now to actually show you a very complex commission report that can take a lot of variables and build it. Now, so I'm already building some commission reports, but I would like to wait to build a couple more with different use cases for that. Now, the other major challenge with running a report in QuickBooks Enterprise is that if there's a lot of data, if it's a large QuickBooks data file, the report, number one, takes a long time to render, and number two, the QuickBooks user, especially in a multi-user environment, they're going to feel a huge slowdown while one of the users is trying to compile a really big report. So just wanted to kind of frame the limitations of QuickBooks Enterprise standard reports. Now, once we move into QBar or QuickBooks Advanced Reporting, let's talk about the limitations that are in QBar. That way you kind of have those really clear there. Number one, you must have an active subscription or full service plan of QuickBooks Enterprise, which means the customer has to be paying an annual fee into it. to have access to this. There's no possible way to do this in QuickBooks Pro, Premier, Accountant, or online. Yes, if you're a QuickBooks consultant, you could, in theory, receive your client's QuickBooks Pro, Premier file and upgrade it to Enterprise and pull custom reports if you own Enterprise yourself, but you couldn't really do it on premise for the client in real time. Now, you must be in multi-user mode for this to work, but it still works if you have only one QuickBooks Enterprise user. So it's okay if if the QuickBooks user only has one license, this will still work, but you still have to switch to multi-user mode. Now, QBar has access to all the data. That means that there's no way to have a QBar user or an advanced reporting user to only pull data and be limited to not seeing payroll or not seeing the bank. So if you give anyone access to pulling reports in advanced reporting, they will have access to all 100% of the data. It's just not possible right now to create that limitation. Now, it's important to also take in consideration when QBar was released, QuickBooks Advanced Reporting was released in QuickBooks 2014, Intuit decided not to create a tool from scratch. Rather, they went out there and they shopped around for major analytic tool providers in the field, and they basically contracted ClickView to create a modified version of their famous analytics report building software just for QuickBooks, so it will not have any look and feel and familiarity with QuickBooks. So you will see in about 5 minutes when I go into the demo, the feel for it is just not like QuickBooks. Now, it is QuickBooks data, yes, but the feel for it is nothing like QuickBooks. So if you have 10 years, 15 years of QuickBooks experience and you never use QBar, there's no intuition in the world that will help you navigate through it. You are going to need to study this, watch these videos, and read some of the guides, and I'll give you some links and stuff like that you can access. Now, the learning curve is very steep. I am a technology consultant. I do training for a living. I personally cannot imagine a lot of my clients. Now, I know some of my clients are listening now. So the ones that you know who you are, I'm not saying you, but a lot of the other ones cannot. There's just no possible way that they can wrap their head around this. It's a very steep learning curve for non-technical users, especially when we're doing expressions, which are they look like formulas or calculated fields. So I strongly recommend that custom report building becomes a specialty of someone, and it's very lucrative, by the way. Some of my highest fees are in building custom reports. Now, another deficiency is the database must be refreshed if a new transaction is added from the last time we refreshed it, because it is a duplicate. It's a clone of the database. And lastly, you cannot consolidate data from multiple QuickBooks files the way QCube can. Now, there may be a few limited amount of users here that use QCube. QCube is probably the inspiration to QBar. It has been the amazing solution that was given to us by this company called Clarify to allow us to build this level of reports with QuickBooks data. So what Intuit is doing is trying to provide a tool that doesn't cost anything versus QCube paying 4, 5, 7, a couple $1,000 for the tool, depending on how many users are going to have it. Long story short, QCube is an amazing program, and if you love QCube and you're really good at it, you probably want to stick with it. But if you don't want to pay for an extra app, this is exactly the best solution for you. So the last sort of theoretical slide here before we jump into the product is, what does QBar have? What are the big features? Well, number one, it is included for free in QuickBooks Enterprise. So it's kind of like the low-hanging fruit, the real important thing to point out. The second one, it has access to about more or less about 1,200 fields. This list can grow because they recently updated the the software, so it could have even more fields, but it's 1,200, maybe 1,300, maybe 1,400, compared to maybe 50 maximum that I can run in a standard QuickBooks report. So the power is just incredible. Because it's a clone database, it doesn't affect QuickBooks performance. That way, when you run a really big report in QBar, it's ultra fast and it doesn't affect QuickBooks at all. It's also dashboard style. That means you can essentially have multiple reports and multiple summarized data and graphical data all into one screen. It also has a pivot table style report. So for Excel power users, it's going to feel very similar. And also there's this concept of expressions, which is sort of a proprietary combination between like an Excel formula and an SQL query, if you know what that means, and can provide lots of depth, especially when building these customized reports. Now, this video is not meant to be sort of introductory, step one. I have 3 other videos that I'm going to email you as part of the blast email that I'll send to everybody with a recording of today's webinar. I'll send you these 3. If you watch these 3, awesome, because then you will really enjoy the presentation, because it's a great continuation of the 3 videos I did in the past. If you have not watched it, it's fine. Just make sure you watch those as well, because they really complement today's presentation. All right, so we're gonna get started with a starter report called the AR Aging Summary. We'll talk about 3 other things. We'll talk about changing the report interval. We'll talk about pivoting customers by classes, customer type, and other dimensions like rep. And then we'll talk about getting invoice detail level in the AR summary report as well, to be able to get a combination between like an invoice detail, open invoice detail report, and AR aging report at the same time. Okay, so let's start by comparing an accounts receivable report. So in QuickBooks Enterprise, we click on the reports menu, we go to customers and receivables, and we go to AR aging summary. This is what QuickBooks Enterprise offers now. Now, what are the things that I can do here in QuickBooks Enterprise? Is I can click on collapse and not see the jobs and only see the customers, and can hit expand. I can also change the interval days. So if I want this to be every 10 days all the way through 60, for example, I can change the interval days, and then that information comes through. I can also click on customize report, and I can sort the columns, in this case by total, so I can essentially see the customer that owes the most at the top, the one that owes the least in the bottom. And also I can run filters where I can, for example, I'm going to look for a particular customer type, and say, look, I am only interested on the home builders, and then click OK, and then I can run a filter and only see those. Now, where the buck stops, basically, where the limitation is that I cannot show them all, but then group them by customer type. This is where advanced reporting really is great. So let's go into advanced reporting by clicking on the reports menu, then clicking onto advanced reporting. The first thing that advanced reporting will ask you is, would you like to update the database? So only for the people that have not done the update yet, this is something that you must do. Or if you've done any changes from the last update, then you definitely are going to have to do that. Okay, so let me click. I'm going to go ahead and click on reports list. That way I can go into the default reports. This is the internal sort of the report library that's here. So I'll start with that. And let me see. And okay, and then I'm gonna have basically the reports that I created myself. Those are not gonna have that little S, that little X box. I call it a $sign, but it's kind of an S for starter report. And then the ones that have the S, these are the starter reports. So if I wanted to just show those, I would click here where it says show and only click starter reports. And then these are the ones that we're gonna get started. I think they gave us about 10 or 12 different options for us, and we're gonna work with a couple of these. Okay. Now, somebody's asking, that will we get the slides? Yes, I want to send a copy of the slides via email together with the recording of the webinar, and also the links to all the other recordings. Okay, so let me start with an AR aging summary, and I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. And the first thing that you will see when it loads is, again, it doesn't have a lot of, it doesn't look familiar to QuickBooks. It's a much different reporting system. I'm going to go ahead and close the library tab here, so I get kind of a full screen. And I'm also going to remove the date filter, right? So for the time being, I'm not going to focus too much about the date filter. Now, I'm also working on a sample file. So the dates on the sample file, in this case, like 2018, doesn't match today's date because the report is assuming that you're working on a real file, but that's neither here or there. Anyway, so let's start with a simple concept, which is changing the report interval. So on the AR aging summary report, I can, and I know this is not intuitive, right? Like I have to know that 30 is something I can click on and I can change. So unfortunately, you have to know these things, right? That's how the report was built. So I'm gonna have to double click on that 30 until that cursor becomes sort of editable. And then in this case, I can change this to, let's say, 10. and then I'll hit tab, and then you're going to see that now the columns are now refreshed based on 10 days, 11 days, that sort of thing. So that's kind of like the first thing that you observe. The other piece of information that you observe is that this particular table has, if you look at the customer, it has the format where it says customer colon job, and these are not grouped by customer and they're not collapsible by customer, just because of the natural state of this report. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on the report header in the top, or the title, and I'm going to click on property. Okay, click on properties, and then I'm going to go into all the way to the left into general, and then I'm going to see the report tab that is selected. So if you look at this icon here, this is the report type. This is what they call a tabular report, or a straight table, which basically looks like a spreadsheet. If you look at the icon in the top, that's actually a pivot table, which will look like a pivot table if you're familiar with Excel pivot tables. If you're not, then the introductory videos I think will help. The other piece I like doing here is here where it says fast type change, I can actually select pivot table and straight table, and instead of me having to right click and change it, let me click on apply here and click OK. I have a little icon here in the top where I can do fast change. So if I click on this, it will change it to a tab table. If I click on it again, it will change it into a pivot table. Now, it didn't seem like much of a change, just because I only have a single pivoting mechanism here, which is customer. So once I add another dimension, like in this case, customer job or parent customer, then I'm going to start becoming, I'll start pivoting per se. So let's do that. Let me go ahead and right click on the header table again, or the title of the table. I'll click on properties, and then I'm going to click on dimensions. Now, dimensions are the rows and or columns. So I can have multiple rows or multiple columns, or a combination of the two. These are the rows or columns that I can group or summarize the data by. Right now, this is attached to the transactions dot customer full name field, which is available as part of all the available fields here. These are the 1,200 fields I was referring to. This is all the data points available from the QuickBooks table. So this is coming from the transactions table, and it's the customer full name. So what I need to do now is add one that has the parent customer name that does not have the job per se. So I'm going to click here on all tables, and I'm going to go specifically into the customer table. And the customer table is basically my database of customers, and every single piece of information, like my customer's address, state, city, that sort of thing, is going to be here. So I'm going to scroll down and look for customer full name. So let's go into where is my customer full name, or parent full name. There it is. So that's customer parent full name. And yes, this is a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of fields. You're going to have to play and practice with this until you find and discover some of these fields are available. So I'm going to go ahead and click on parent full name, click on add. And now I'm going to see that I have two dimensions here. I have a customer full name, and I have customer parent name. And now whatever I label them here is whatever they're going to be called up here. So for example, in this case, this is labeled customer. So I'm going to call this customer full name. And I'm going to go ahead and label my parent as customer only. Right, that way I have one called customer, one called full name. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now something rather strange happened, where I'm seeing on my first dimension the full name, and the second dimension of customer. That doesn't make a lot of sense. We want to do it. We want to actually change the order of these. So I can do two things. One is I can click and drag customer and run it to the left like this, and then basically reorganize the information. And this is extremely valuable for doing subtotals. Or I could right click on the title there, hit properties, and then I could change the order of these by simply promoting or demoting them in order like this, in order for me to change the order. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply, click OK. So now what's the valuable piece about having them in dimensions is that right now, because this is a pivot table and it's fully expanded, both dimensions are being shown. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on the title again and hit property. Okay. And then I am going to click on where it says presentation, and then I'm going to click on this little box that says always show fully expanded. Basically, what that does is that overrides my capacity to expand and collapse specific dimensions. So by unchecking that and clicking OK, I now will have everything collapsed right into the primary dimension. And then I could manually click on one, click on the other one, and let me just reset it here. Click on the other one and start discovering them. That is possible. Or I can right click anywhere here and click on expand all, and that would expand them all, right? But what's the value, a valuable piece of this is that I can also subtotal these based on these multiple dimensions. So if I right click on the title bar and click on properties, I'm going to go here where it says show partial sums. Like this, it says show partial sums. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then I'm going to see a subtotal. In this case, I told it I only wanted to see the subtotal for the upmost dimension, which is the one behind customer. So if I want to also subtotal based on the specific customer as well, I'm going to right click on the table, click properties, and then click on the next dimension here, and also click on show partial sums, and then I'll click on OK, and then we're going to see another level of subtotaling. So if I were to collapse these, then I would see the subtotal there, but I would see it all summed up in there. So that's kind of the overall, and hopefully that starts giving you a little bit of um, idea of how these reports are being constructed. Now, the other piece I want to talk about is how flexible this dashboard is. I can actually drag this down here, right? And I could, change this table size. I could also move the title, somewhere here to the right, and I can move the report, the report interval here to the left. So I do have a lot of flexibility in terms of what I want this to look like. Right here on the left side, we see a search, which in this case we can search any fields. So if I start typing, for example, last wages, we see that LAS that is telling me that there is a customer using the last wages address. And if I click on any of these, it will now become a filter, and it will only show me the customers that have any of that information as part of their attributes. That's actually pretty awesome. I'll give you another example of how that works. So I'm going to go back into regular QuickBooks here. I'm going to go into the customer center, and then I'm going to double click on this customer here. And then I'm going to go into additional info and see the customer type. So see, we have a customer type retail. So I want to talk about being able to use that customer type as part of a dimension here for the reports. So a couple of things I can do. I can go into the search box here. I can type retail, and then we're going to see retail coming up as a customer type. And if I were to click on that, that basically essentially becomes now a filter. If I click on that little eraser button, and that's an extremely important box to work with, which is the current selections, which basically tells you what data in the report is being filtered. Clicking on the little eraser button basically resets that. Okay, so now let's talk about bringing the customer types into the table itself. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on properties, right click on the title, hit properties, and then I'm going to click on dimensions, and then I'm going to bring a new dimension here called customer type. Now there's two ways to do this. One, if I happen to know already what that string is, I can click on add calculated dimension. Okay, and I don't want to concentrate too much time on calculated dimensions, but just for the sake of it, if I know what the string is, I can actually start typing customers, okay, or customer dot, and then I can put customer type, full name, you see it right here, and then I basically did it via typing or via discovering, and then I hit OK, and then I click on apply, and then we're going to see now a new dimension inside of these customer jobs that actually tell me my customer type. Now at the same time, I can grab that customer type and maybe bring it into before customer here to the left, and then now I can create a new level of grouping where I see my AR aging by customer type, then by customer job, and then then by customer, and then essentially by job. And I could also subtotal the AR aging by customer type. So you can start thinking about the great, amazing levels of dimension that we can work some of this data. Now, let me right click here on the title and click properties, and let me go ahead and delete that dimension that I have and show you the other way for searching that dimension is I could actually just go in here and try to find it. Now it would be kind of nice if I can search it in here. I can't, but if I wanted to search it, I would just hit cancel here, and then I'm going to type here customer type. Okay, and by searching customer type, in this case will be maybe customer.type. Actually, no, sorry, let me type on retail, which is one of my customer types, and then I can actually see the name of the table. So if I know one of the fields, I can search the field, and then I can see the table. Okay, so the table that I'm looking for is customer type full name. So the area to focus in is this is in the customer table. So now that I know it's in the customer table, I right click on the title, click on properties, and then I'm going to look for the table specifically for customer to narrow down that customer list, and then go down here and look for my customer type. So where is my customer type? Where are you? Customer type, perfect. Customer type full name. I'll add that to the dimensions, and I can go ahead and delete this one. And then I'm also going to look for rep, right? Because that's the other one, which is sales rep. So I'll look for sales rep full name and click on add. So now we're really starting to look for interesting ways to do this. So we can go to customer type. We can promote that to be the first one. Then we can go to sales rep, make that the second one. Then the parent will be the third one. And then let's say we want to just temporarily disable the job. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to click on where it says enable conditional, and then I'll click 0. Now this is kind of a crazy thing. You kind of have to know this, but this is a way for me to temporarily disable that dimension. That way I don't have to delete it and then re-add it if I want to use it later on. And I hit apply. So now I have information pivoted in different ways. I have my customer job first, then my rep, and then expand my rep. I can see my customers, and you can start seeing kind of how interesting you can start recovering some of this data. And then when you see a blank one, basically this blank one has no rep. So you would have to definitely go back into QuickBooks, search for that particular customer that has no rep. So I'm going to have to go into each of those invoices or each of these customers and see which one doesn't have a rep, refresh the data, and then come back and see it from here. So yeah, it's a really valuable piece about AR aging summary. Now I'm going to take a pause for a second to look at questions. This pause will be roughly about 2 minutes. While the pause happens, I'll go ahead and run a poll. Actually, no, I don't need to run a poll yet. I'll just look at the questions here, and give me 1 second. I would love to answer some live questions. So let me see what questions I have. Okay, so let me see. Somebody's saying, can we access custom fields as part of the dimensions? Okay, so the answer is yes. I don't know if I will get to custom fields in this one, but for sure, the answer is yes, and custom fields will be available at least on the very last of the 3 series of the webinars. Somebody says the numbers are unformatted. That's great question. So unformatted means I don't have sort of like maybe the dollar sign or something like that. So I'm going to right click on the table properties here, and I'm going to click on, and this was my fault, right? I didn't do this correctly. And then I'm going to go to expressions, right? Because this information is now part of the expressions, right? Like the 9300 or the 0 here, whatever it is. So I'm going to go into the expressions here, but I want to work the formatting of the expression. So I'm going to go into, in this case, it would be presentation. No, actually, I don't know exactly where it is by heart, but I'll tell you right here, number. So I'm going to go into number, and then I'm going to change this to money, right? That's the formatting. And I'll go into each of these and change it to money format. And basically what this will do is this will change the formatting to have the .00 at the end, or whatever the 2 cents are, or the 2 digits are, and then the dollar sign. So when I click on apply and click OK, then we see that. So hopefully that's the answer to that question about, hey, how do I fix the formatting? Why is the formatting off? Okay, someone is saying, let me see. Okay, great question. One says, are the sales rep fields drawn? Shannon Mackey is asking this. Thank you for asking. Awesome question. Are the sales rep fields being drawn from the transaction, or are they being drawn from the customer? So what does that question mean? So let me tell you what I mean by that, right? So for example, this customer called Big City Store. I'm going to go ahead and double click on Big City Store, and then I'm going to go into the rep, and let's say the standard rep for Big City Store is this one called DR. However, in the specific transaction, for whatever reason, the default sales rep wasn't used, and therefore in this transaction we actually use a different rep, which is EW. So the nature of the question that she's asking is, Hector, if I pull that advance report, and it's telling me that that particular sale belonged to DR, let me see what the dollar amount was. That's the 17,250, right? So it's this guy right here. So where is this information coming from? So the answer is in the specific dimension that I used, right? So I'm going to right click here and go to properties and show you the dimension that I used. So in the specific dimension that I used, which is from the customer table, customers.salesrep full name, this is going to draw the data from the customer information, not from the transaction information. If you wanted to draw that data from the invoice itself, so if you wanted EW to show up here, well, first of all, I would have to refresh the data, that's for sure, just because I just changed it on the fly here. But the second piece, I would use a different dimension, which instead of using this one called customers.salesrep, I would use it from the transactions table. So I would have to go into transactions dot, and I assume it's just called sales rep. There it is. So I have to pull it from the transactions table. So the field that I'm pulling is not from the customers table, it's now going to be from the transactions table. And then when I hit OK and OK, when I refresh this data, now it would show a different sales rep. Now in this case, it's not going to do it because it wasn't changed on the spot, but that's kind of how it works. Also, the way the sales rep is displayed on the sales data has a little bit of a different name than in the customer data, but it is essentially the same field. So hopefully that answered your question, Shannon, where the data is coming from. Someone is asking, what if I don't need dollar signs, just decimals and commas? Yeah, so that would be, I think they're talking about formatting here. So we're going to click on properties and I go into number here. And then instead of making this money, I would make this fixed to 2 decimals in this case and hit OK. And then like in this case, I don't get the dollar sign, but I do get the formatting. Now, there's so many questions here and I want to answer them all. So please join our Facebook group. Ask me more questions there. I will answer as many as I can. I will, I promise you. Somebody's saying that our largest clients are my largest client using QuickBooks Enterprise has $1 million in sales. Yes, with a B. So QuickBooks Enterprise can still handle $1 billion in sales. Great point. I love QuickBooks Enterprise. Let me see. I have more questions about how to do transaction count and stuff like that. Yeah, that is possible. But I want to show one more thing before we jump into the other report type. So let me right click here, go to properties. I'm going to go ahead and go back to dimensions. And I'm going to, in this case, get rid of customer type, get rid of sales rep, and get rid of customer full name for a second. And I just have customer parent full name. I'm going to add a new dimension, which is transaction number. Now, why do I want this? Because I want a combination between an AR aging summary and an AR detail report, which is a very common request. People want to see the details inside of it, but they want to see the columns for 30, 60, and 90, and that sort of thing. Okay. Somebody's asking, is this available in the accountant edition of QuickBooks Enterprise? The answer is yes. All right. So where was I? Lost my train of thought here. Transaction number. So I'm going to click on tables here, scroll down and go into transactions. And then I'm going to look for my reference number. Again, this is stuff that, I'm telling you, 4 months ago, I knew nothing about advanced reporting. 4 months ago? Yes. 4 months ago, I knew nothing about reporting. Today, I know a little bit less than nothing. I mean, a little bit more than nothing, but at least I'm dangerous enough to do custom reports for people. So this is a process that's going to take a while, right? So just have patience. If you use it enough and you show the commitment, you have commitment, it will work out eventually. So by adding the transactions reference number and hitting OK, and then I'm going to right click here and expand all again, I essentially get sort of a combination between a detailed report and a summary report for accounts receivable, which is a very common thing. People want me, a lot of my clients ask me, hey, Hector, I want to know, I don't want just the total, I want the total and also broken down by invoice. That's kind of an interesting, by invoice number, which is a different concept. And I can also add a column. In this case, let me show you. I'm going to right click on properties. This is from a question. Somebody saying, can I add there a column for the due date, or can I add a column for a last payment date? Right? That's the question that here Mary is asking. Yeah, let's try it. I mean, this is obviously totally improvised. I haven't tried it yet, so let's see if we can. So that's going to be from the transactions table, because a due date would be from the transactions table. So I'm going to go into transactions, and then I'm going to look just for due date. Let's see if that's even there. Um, let's see if due date is even an option here. Let's see, there's due date. Now let's hope that's the one. So let's click right there on due date. I'll click on add. Now the problem is, it just made a mistake right away. I can't add this to dimensions. It has to be on expressions because I want them to be not grouped by due date. If I wanted grouped by due date, then I would do that. But in this case, I want it to be part of the field data, not necessarily the pivoted summarized data. So transactions due date, let me go ahead and edit this, and I'll copy the syntax. That way I don't have to sort of search it again. So I'll close this, right? And then I'll delete that dimension, and then I'm going to add it under expression. So now I know that under expressions, I have to add a new expression here. And this is a new concept right now, where expressions are the fields inside of the group data. So I'm going to click on add. And then in here, I'm going to, I mean, I can start typing, or I can just paste it because I had copied it from before. And then I'll click on OK. And then I'm going to click on OK again. And then hopefully that will work. And there it is. It didn't work. There could be multiple reasons for that. I'm going to have to double check why it didn't work. Let me right click on properties again. And let me just make sure that I don't have an error here. So I'm going to put this in brackets just in case. Sometimes what happens is when there's spaces inside of a field, you may have to close it in brackets for it to understand it. Hopefully that works. If it doesn't work, then we'll put it on standby, and I promise you I'll give you the answer. No, that was exactly the issue here. So I can't move the columns around the same way I can do it with dimensions like this. So I would have to probably move that due date manually. So I would have to go into expressions, click on that expression there, and then promote that all the way to the top. And then I'll give it a label. That way it doesn't have that weird text, and I'll just put here due date. And then I'll click on apply, and then I click OK, and there it is. So now I have my AR aging detail grouped by customer, then by transaction number, then by due date. So it starts becoming really interesting, the stuff that we can do with this. Hopefully that's sort of enough information to at least make you like advanced reporting just for the AR aging summary. Okay, so let me go to reports list here and go back here into starter reports. Let me go back into my trusty PowerPoint here just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so customer list. So I'm going to show you how to customize the customer list and what additional interesting things we can do with a starter customer list. Okay. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to choose here customer list, and then I'll click open, and I'll click don't save because I don't want to save the work that I did there. I'll just give it a minute for it to pull up the customer list. And again, I'm going to go ahead and close this library here. Now, we're going to pay a lot of attention to that object library, but not on this episode. We'll do it on the episode where we'll talk about creating reports from scratch. Right now, we're sort of concentrating on working what we have already, just to kind of give you just a much better understanding of the software based on what Intuit provided for us. So in this customer list, I have two list boxes. I have this list box for state, and I have a list box for city. Now, what list boxes do, I'm just going to right click here and click on properties just to show you. What a list box do is I can pick a single field. I can pick a single field from my entire field list, and I can create essentially a filter, an adjustable filter, where I can click on any of these cities, right? I can click on any of these cities at random, and it's going to show me what customers are in these cities. If I wanted to sit there and pick and choose, I can hold the control button and pick and choose the specific cities that I'm looking for. Let's say for whatever reason, I'm trying to retarget a marketing campaign and send them gifts or letters or something based on the city, and then I can just literally sit there and pick and choose the cities by hand, right? Now I could do this in Excel as well, true, but still kind of interesting to see you can do it with here. So let me click on the erase button up here to clear that. Now we have the state, in this case, the state field as a list box. So I can click on California and only see my California customers. I can click on Texas, only see my Texas customers, New York, Nevada, etc. Now, somebody will ask in line of the same question as before, is this address coming from my customer database or is it coming from my transaction database? The answer is this is from my customer database. Now, just to show you another example of list boxes, let me create a list box for zip code. So I'm going to right click here, go to new sheet object and create a list box. Now, it's the first time we do this, right? So right click, new sheet object, list box. So I'm going to click on list box. I'm going to click on the field, and then I'm going to look for my customers dot probably zip code or customers dot billing zip code or something like that. So I'm going to go down here and look for customer dot probably zip code or billing zip code. Let's look at that. Okay, I couldn't find it, so let me try. Let me see, customer. Let's see that again. Customer. Maybe I went too fast. Customer dot billing address. Okay, so there it is. Customer dot billing address postal code. So sometimes you have to search. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I get this big box of all the potential zip codes. So at the same token, like if I say, if these are sorted by order and I want to say, I'm going to click and drag and grab all the nines, right, which is almost kind of the equivalent of just choosing the state, I can do that, right? Assuming that these are all organized by nines, or I can just right click on any specific zip codes and get those customers, or again, I can control click and hold a couple of those, or even more interesting, I can click on the search box up here and say, look, I want any zip code above 9,000 and press enter, and then that will show up in here. Okay. At the same time, we have this balance. We see the balance in this case dimension or column here. I can right click on the title, click properties, and then in this case, let me just work straight with the sort function, and then I'm going to go ahead and sort and click on balance, and then I'm going to go ahead and balance this by descending order, and I'll take away text, and then I click apply, and that should organize my balance. If it didn't work in this particular case, I may need to do something called a calculated sorting. Do I have time to do calculated sorting? No, we'll do that on more of a customized field. But yeah, but it is possible for you to sort by balance. If it didn't work in this particular case, I may have to do calculated sorting. So we'll leave that to a different session. For now, I'll just kind of change. I can change the order of these, and then I can just reorder them maybe in Excel by exporting it. So I'm going to show you how that will work. So all the way to the right of it, there's a little button here called Excel. And if I click on that, I would just basically export my raw data into Excel. Now, unfortunately, sorting is kind of an interesting thing in advanced reporting. It doesn't work. I mean, obviously with Excel, it's pretty easy, right? We just, sort this and it'll work pretty easy like that. But in advanced reporting, sorting is not always straightforward. So I wanted to point that out. It is possible to sort it by balance, but I have to do sort of a calculated field, and I prefer just not to do it for the time being. Okay. All right. So the other piece I wanted to show you is pivoting, in this case, by customer type, rep, or classes. The same way we kind of did it with the other report. So how that will work? Well, first of all, I have to change this from a straight table into a pivot table. That's kind of the first instance here. So I'm going to click on apply here, and then I'm going to go into dimensions and see the only dimension here is customer full name. That's fine. But then I'm going to have to create a new dimension, which is this case. Now we kind of know where this is going. So I'm going to go to customer dot sales rep. Okay. And then I'll click OK. And then I'll go ahead and promote that. And then I'll click on apply. And now I should be able to see my customers, in this case, grouped by, let me bring this box down here, grouped by rep, and then I can expand them, as I can, right? So I can make this box a little bit bigger. We could probably get rid of that zip code table if we didn't have to. So this is how we can expand these. So let me erase all these filters here. That way we have just raw data here, okay? And I'm gonna right click here and click on collapse all. So that way we just kind of start from here. These are my 3 sales reps, and I can right click and click expand all. And then I see them here grouped by sales rep. So if I were to run this in a filter or something like that in Excel afterwards, or even do it through here, this will work just as well. At the same token, we can have multiple dimensions. In the case of QuickBooks Enterprise specifically, it is possible, let me show you, it is possible to have a customer with a default class. So if you go here into, maybe the settings are not on, so let me show you that. I would have to switch into single user to do that, but it is possible for us to create default classes by customer. So if I wanted to group my customers by class, that is also possible. But let me just kind of show you, because it's not enabled in the sample file, how that will work, because you would have to have that in order for you to be able to do it. But in one of these options here, we're going to have assign classes to, and then we're going to put here names. So if you were to assign a class to a customer, if that was the case, right? If every one of your customers here, in this option, where is it? In this class, if every one of your customers had a default class, which in this case doesn't make a lot of sense, in that particular case, then I could go into my customers table and group my customers by class. I'm going to my customer table, and then I can look for my customer class right here, class full name, and click on add, and I'm going to go ahead and promote these. In this case, I would have to refresh the data to get it because there's no classes, but it's just an illustration of something I can do in QuickBooks that seeps over to advanced reporting. All right, so we added the, okay, so for subtotals, it kind of works the same way as we did it before. So I can right click here, click on properties, and then I can create subtotals by going into presentation and then do partial sums. In this case, click apply, but the subtotals are only gonna work for calculated fields. So again, we may have to wait until the custom reports until we get a functioning subtotal in here, because we may have to rechange the way that field looks like by adding a sum formula. I don't want to get into it, but it's just kind of an idea of where else we can go with a customer list report. Okay, and the last one I want to show you in this case is the profit and loss by job. I just want to kind of show you how the profit and loss by job works in there, and then how we can add classes. So we can replace the job with classes in the starter report. Now, in terms of time, it's been an hour already. I didn't promise you whether it was going to be an hour or more than an hour, less than an hour. It'll probably be about 10 more minutes, okay, before we finish. So I'm going to click on report list, and then I'm going to click on show, and then I'll click on starter reports. And then we're going to go down to profit and loss by job, and we'll click on open, and then don't save. Okay, and that's going to pull what looks like a regular profit and loss, a calculated profit and loss by job. And you see how these dimensions work, right? Net income, gross profit, account type. These are all here meant to for us to have subtotals down here. But right now, the dimension that we have here in columns is customer. This is to show you, it's kind of an interesting thing. This customer dimension is actually set up as columns. If I actually drag it to the left like this, where you see that little arrow. Now customers now become a subdimension, in this case of account. See that? Okay, so that doesn't really work because this is a by customer type of report. So I would have to click and drag it here up, so the arrows like this. So then it shows in columnar format. However, I don't want to see customers there. Let's say I want to see classes. So I'm going to right click here on the title, hit properties, go back into dimensions, and I'm going to go all the way down to my very last expression here, my very last dimension, sorry, and click on edit. And instead of having the customer full name, I'm just going to have the class. So I'm going to go to class name, and then I'll collapse that, and then I'll click OK, and then I click on apply, and then notice that now I have these grouped by classes. Okay, so you can see my profit and loss is now grouped by classes, and if I happen to have subclasses, then what I could do is right click there on properties. I don't think this company file does have subclasses, but if that was the case, what I could do is I can add a field from my, in this case, from my class list. See their class list, and then I can pull up the parent full name, go to add, and now I'm going to have parent full name and class name. I'm going to make sure that parent full name is on the top. Now, unfortunately, on this screen, we really can't tell whether these dimensions are columns or rows. Unfortunately, that's kind of this current situation, but we'll know visually. So I'm going to click on OK, and I'm going to go to, oh, there it is. Okay, so we have, it's there perfectly. So we have class parent full name, and then we have customer, and then notice that we do have subclasses in here. Notice that all four of these are here, and installation is there by itself. Let me just make sure in my QuickBooks file that all makes sense here. Let me go into classes, and yeah, that's how it is. So we have a parent class and then the subclasses. Okay, and at the same time, we could even hide, if you wanted to collapse these, we can even hide some of those, in this case, some of the transaction classes by clicking on a 0 here, clicking on OK, and we will hide them, and we'll only basically see the collapsed class, which is something that QuickBooks cannot do. All right, so we're out of time here. There was one more example I wanted to do, which I'll save for the next one, which is talking about sales item by detail. However, those are the ones I focus in on those other videos that I recorded earlier. Again, the website is QuickBooks.enterprise. Stay tuned for a minute because I'm gonna run a survey real quick, and I would love for you to give me some feedback. Go to a Facebook group, join our Facebook group. Let's continue the discussion. Let's exchange ideas about QuickBooks Enterprise and advanced reporting. Join us on Twitter or follow us, whatever you call that. And if you have questions about this topic for this specific episode, email me at hector@enterprise.expert. Now, I have a lot of questions. I can't pick and choose which is I'm going to do. So please send those questions over by email or in the Facebook group. And basically, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for being part of the Enterprise.expert community. And I'll see you in a month.